Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Right now, we're discussing our first hot topic that says federal government orders Waec, Neco to begin full CBT by 2026. The federal government has directed Waec and Neco to fully adopt computer-based testing for all exams by 2026. Education Minister Dr. Tunji Alausa announced that objective tests will start on CBT by November 2025, with full CBT for both essays and objectives by May-June 2026 to curb malpractice. While the government is confident, questions remain about Nigeria's readiness given widespread infrastructure gaps and low digital access in many areas. Transitioning two national exam bodies fully to CBT will demand serious upgrades and support. Meanwhile, JAMB's registrar, Professor Ishak Oloyede, confirmed that over 1.6 UTME candidates had completed their exams despite a few cases of malpractice. The push for CBT signals progress, but true nationwide readiness is still uncertain. Joining us this morning to discuss this is Peter Ogudoro, is an education researcher. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to join you.
Good morning, sir.
So CBT, computer-based testing, other countries have done this for a while. Even in the UK, it's always been computer-based examinations. But Nigeria, we're just coming, riding this wave at the moment. And we're seeing that come 2026, by May, June, they want this to be fully implemented. First things first, what is your take on this? And do you think we might be able to, get it done by 2026? Don't you think it's a bit rush, and do you think we'll be able to get there?
Well, you see, we present ourselves to the world as a confused nation. We contradict ourselves. Remember, it's not up to a month. I was on this show, and what were we discussing? A professor in one of Nigeria's universities was campaigning against our children having access to digital platforms.
Yes.
Says our children shouldn't use phones, our children shouldn't use computer. A month after, we are saying all children should use phones, all children should use computer. That's basically what we're trying to say. So what really do we want as a country? We are very confused, especially when it comes to the education industry. The people running it have no idea what the problems are. How can you insist that Waec and Neco have to start doing what JAMB has been doing for quite some time? I think there is a demonstration of ignorance regarding the difference between JAMB and Waec and Neco. Those three bodies are not exactly the same. Neco and Waec are similar in terms of their mandates and the responsibilities they have on their shoulders. But you cannot use this little success that JAMB has achieved with respect to using CBT to determine when Neco and Waec to start using CBT. Those two exams are not the same. In the first place, the average child writing WASC, which is the exam Waec and Neco conduct, is in for 9 subjects, and those 9 subjects have practicals, have multiple choice questions, have essays, and we have been struggling to even make simple things work well. For example, even our practicals, we still haven't been able to get it right for all these years that we have been writing WASC. Now we want to use computer to do all examinations, and we want to achieve that within 1 year. What is internet access? How many of our children are computer literate? And most of the time when we design things in Nigeria, we design them for elites, for children who live in Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Kaduna with their parents. We forget that the average Nigerian child doesn't live in Lagos. He doesn't live in Port Harcourt, he doesn't live in Abuja. He lives in faraway, remote villages in Adamawa, in Yobe, in Akwa Ibom, in Imo State, not even Owerri, far-flung places. And these are children who, all their life, they have never seen a computer, not to talk about using it. And all of a sudden, you want them to use computers to write essays. How is that going to happen? And even if that is going to happen, are you going to achieve that within a year? The answer certainly is no. We romance with the idea of we're changing the calendar. And then after a day or two, we reversed it. That is exactly what is going to happen to this one. So I have no conviction that this is realizable. Yes, we might be able to try with respect to the multiple choice questions, the ones you call objective, papers. Yeah, but certainly the practicals, which are necessary for you to determine a child who is ready to go to university, and then essays. I have no reason to believe that Nigeria has got to a point where we can test what essays are supposed to test using computers, especially in an environment where most of these children have never used computers to study. There is this wrong idea that you don't need to know, you don't need to have certification in computing to be able to use computers to write exams. That's not true. Why are they arguing like that? They say you only need to know A, B, C, D, which are the alternatives they give children in exams, and then you know the 4 arrow buttons and probably just one more, and you are good to go. But we know that the way the world works is that the more you use something, the better you get at it. And you know the ones who quote the grammar that says that practice helps you to become perfect. But now we say, whether you have used computer before or not, just overnight, go and learn how to use, how to press the buttons A, B, C, D, and then the 4 arrow buttons, and then come and write exam. That puts children in rural communities at a great disadvantage, and that's what we have seen so far. Now, we have designed a country that has to work only for the elites. This is very unfair. These elites do not constitute more than 20% of Nigeria's population. Why are we putting at a disadvantage over 80% of the population of children who are in secondary schools, who are in far-flung places where there's no electricity? Look at what we have done now with respect to Band A. We just carry out the electricity we are generating, we give it to only the elites, and we ask them to pay for it, and then the rest of the members of the community, we disconnect them from electricity. You don't run a country this way and expect that we'll be able to mobilize our entire capacity as a nation with respect to our human resources, our talents, our gifts, that we can integrate and make them work in a way that moves Nigeria forward. So we haven't started at all. We are still playing games with our lives.
By the way, some people are moving beyond Band A and now going solar. The Aso Rock is an example, 10 billion naira. Well, anyway, that's matter for another day. The thing is, the world actually is going digital, and thinking about computer in itself is a good thing. But it sounds like they're putting the cart before the horse. What is it that should be the horse? What are those first things that they need to do? Because we can't keep shying away from the fact that since the world is going digital, every child should be computer literate. So what are those things that need to be put in place so that in the nearest future we can be talking about this with confidence?
Your nearest future is not even likely to be 5 years' time. I must put that on record, because it doesn't take, for a country like Nigeria that is so dysfunctional, where most people get into government and they're thinking about how they award contracts and get some commission, a percentage from it and put in their pockets. It's not a place where you are likely to get to a point where in the next 5 years all Nigerian children are sitting in classrooms where we are using computer to where they're using computer to interact with their teachers and interact with the rest of the world. So for starters, children must have access to computers in the various schools where they are studying. You can't teach me without computer and then and start conducting all exams I have to write with computers. That's not fair. That's not how even we do education. Unfortunately for us, most of the people who are designing this are insisting on what we have to do in the education space. I'm not educators. I'm not educationists. They are designing systems for people who went to school to study this and they don't consult it. And we always keep thinking that children are just to be seen and not heard. We never ask them what they think about what is going on, really. So the average Nigerian child is not computer literate. We have to make it computer literate, and we don't get in computer literate in one day. It takes, if you start now and introduce computers in every school, secondary school in Nigeria, and then as you hit your JS1, we are using computer to train you for the entire 6 years here in school. But then at the time you get to the final in a class, SS3, we can use computer to conduct all the exams because you have got all the skills to be able to cope. It's not just about writing the exam. You want to be able to give every child a fair chance to prove to you what he or she knows about the subject you're examining him on. We shouldn't be happy when our children fail. We shouldn't be happy when our children don't do well. We shouldn't be happy when only the children of the elites who live in Port Harcourt, Lagos and Abuja do well in exams. And they are the only ones who have access to universities, especially the private ones. But even the federal universities, who are the people who are there now? They are generally children of elite Port Harcourt and Lagos. So how are we going to be able to achieve social migration, where the child of the poor manages to overcome poverty, and then he is able to use education to liberate his family from the challenges that poverty imposes on individuals and on families. So we need to train our children with computers for 5 to 6 years. We need to also ensure that we get a system that enables families to acquire these systems and have them at home, so that whatever the children are using to practice in school, they are also going to be able to have access to those things at home. Unfortunately for us, we just go to England, we go to United States of America, and we say, they use a computer to write exams. Yeah, these people have been doing this thing for the past 40 years. I trained in England. I tell you, virtually every child in England has been using computer right from kindergarten. But here, we even campaign against children using computer. They said they have to use computer to write exam. And it wasn't in the first year children started using computer in England that they started using computer to train to examine them and to determine how much of learning has occurred. It took several years, in fact decades, before they started using computer to conduct exams. But here we haven't even used computer to train children, and we said they have to use it to write exam. So we marginalize people. It's a very unequal society. We don't care about promotion of egalitarianism, of equity. We don't want to give access to everyone. We just want to run a society that works only for these politicians who are in Abuja, and then the elite, corporate executives who work in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. That's not how to run a country that is going to be able to compete at the global stage.
Of course, with what you've highlighted now, we're seeing, some level of inequality, widening inequality, especially from the rural and urban areas. Because if you're making this just for the elites, then what happens to the little kids who do not have access to computers? But with this now, do you think there's a role maybe for public-private partnerships, especially if, I don't know about 2026, it might not be feasible, that timeline might not be feasible, but if we're saying that there is a plan, maybe in the next 10 years, we want to go fully on CBT. What is the role of maybe public-private partnership in this to ensure that all students can be computer literate come that time?
Forget about private, public partnership when it comes to this kind of subject we're discussing. You don't bring the private sector into examination process. But
as of right now, we've seen that most schools that people even want to send their kids to are private schools. So the private sector still has something to play in it, right? Except the government is ready to take everything, the bull by the horn, and say we're going for everything. And yeah, I don't know if we both know if that might not work. So what other alternatives do we have?
Now, even in Lagos, that looks like an elitist environment. Go and look at the statistics. The average child in Lagos now still studies in a public school. Their parents can't pay the kind of high fees that private schools are demanding. Let's stop using private schools to determine what we're going to do in the education space. This is Lagos. Go move around. You still discover that there are places where you get on, you see when the school ends at like 2 p.m., you find like 5,000 children coming out of one gate. That's the public school, and you find that all over Lagos. If that is happening in Lagos, where children don't have access to private school system where these computers are available, why are you assuming that children in my village will have access to computers? So you want Dangote to be the one to put computers in the schools in my village, or you want the small a woman who has only NCE who is managing to set up a school that lacks infrastructure. Children sit on the floor to learn. She's trying to make a contribution because she has discovered that government is not doing what it's supposed to do. So she sets up a system. Now you are placing the additional burden of her having to buy computers to give to children. Where will she get the money from? Are you the only one in Nigeria who does not know that banks don't lend money to educational institutions? Because they see education as a system that you cannot trust when it comes to making profit. And that's for a reason, because education is a social good. It's difficult to make profit when you are running an educational institution. Go and ask all the men and women who have gone into education thinking they are going to make money from it. They are all struggling. Those who borrow money from banks are taking over their schools. And when banks take over the schools, they don't care about what the schools are set up to do. They are only interested in how to run it to make money. But you don't run schools just to make money. You run schools to help society to survive, to flourish, to pass on our values to the next generation, and to use that and to use what you're giving them to build a society that works for everyone. Okay. That's not where we are. So let's not depend on the private sector to make this happen. Government must take responsibility to put computers in every classroom in the places where Nigerian children study. That's the only way it can work.
Okay, so if this proves unrealistic from what we're saying, because 2026 is around the corner, that's just 1 year, basically 12 months, right? If this proves to be unrealistic, what other alternatives do you think we need to adopt right now before we can say yes, we're ready to fully go on board with CBT?
Look, we shouldn't be in a hurry. JAMB can continue to do what they're doing. JAMB examines children on only 4 subjects. We can't use JAMB to judge exam bodies that are examining children on 9 subjects and in 3 areas: practicals, essays, and multiple choice questions. Those 2 are parallel lines. They are not going to be able to meet anytime soon. Okay, so even if we want to try, we can say, okay, let's get Waec and Neco to start using it to examine children on multiple choice questions, but certainly not essay. We haven't got to a point where we will be able to do that. Now, let's also put this on record. JAMB has not perfected the CBT. People still cheat. People put cameras and copy, get the questions and get out of the place, and then get children to learn how to cheat the system. Even with JAMB that has been doing it for many years now, there are still a lot of people, mercenaries, who are still cheating the JAMB system, who are still able to get around it and get the marks they want without anybody catching them. So if JAMB can accomplish it when they are examining on only 4 subjects, why are we thinking that the people who are going to do exams, assessment in 3 areas, practicals, multiple choice questions, and essays, and examining each child in non-subjects are going to be able to do it and do it flawlessly? And then remember that it's not every Nigerian child that writes JAMB UTME. But when it comes to Waec and Neco exams, every child who is passing through the system has to write the exam. Some people finish school certificate and they don't want to go to university, they don't want to go to polytechnic. JAMB examines only the people who are interested in higher education. Not everybody is. So they are not examining everybody. So in terms of numbers, you are going to deal with larger numbers when Waec is involved. Every child who passes through secondary school writes Waec exam. We haven't done comprehensive thinking about it. Are we? This thing we do, are you the only one who hasn't had that for you to go and write JAMB UTME, you have to live where you live. Sometimes you go and lodge in a hotel to be able to write exam, and it's a 1-day exam. Neco exam is not a 1-day exam. Waec exam is not a 1-day exam. It's a whole month exam. Why are we using 1-day exam to compare to 1-month exam? So you want our children to be traveling long distances to go? They go and lodge in hotels. Who is going to pick up the bill for them to lodge in hotels? Waec JAMB starts screening people at 6:30 a.m. So for you to be able to move from your location to somewhere else, you probably have to travel for, you leave home 2, 3, 4 hours ahead. Those who can't make it very early, they go and lodge in hotels. Who is going to pick up these bills? This is poor thinking. Anybody who loves Nigeria, you go and tell these people who are saying these things that they don't know what they're talking about. They should be more compassionate, they should be more considerate. The average Nigerian child is not living in Lagos, it doesn't live in Port Harcourt, it doesn't live in Abuja. Even those who do are still struggling to be able to make ends meet. Parents are struggling with a lot of things. They can't feed their children. They can't buy basic textbooks. Now you want to start pushing them to start buying computers for their children so that they can prepare for exams. The responsibilities that belong to government. That's what we are pushing onto the laps of parents. And we are saying they have to do so very urgently in a matter of 1 year. So it's very funny to me. But they are not talking to the people who know how decrepit the system is.
Well, maybe they have plans, because CBT for JAMB, I'm not sure the students bring their computers. Maybe they have plans to buy.
No, but of course the students have to be computer literate.
No, if they can provide computers for them to write the exams, then they can also as well provide the computers for them to learn at home. But I'm just thinking about myself.
Listen,
myself as...
Listen, no. Let me make this point. if you paid attention to what I was telling you, see, JAMB does not even own the places where these children write exams. Most of the places, over 90% of the CBT centers are owned by private sector organizations, which in the first place is wrong. Private sector organizations are not supposed to have anything to do with assessment process in Nigeria because they're a very corrupt country. Those people have set up those places to make profit. You now ask them to use those computers to help you to conduct exams. So when they'll get tempted to take money and sabotage the system, and when that happens, you start looking for police who take these people to court and have them prosecuted.
Yeah.
So the JAMB doesn't own these places, and so what happens is that JAMB goes to rent centers where these exams are going to be written, and then they send their candidates to those places. And so that's what you want to start doing with respect to Waec and Neco exams. So children will need.
It's as clear as day. I'm not sure it can work.
To go and write exams.
I don't think it's feasible. It's not feasible for 2026.
Like I was saying,
it's not feasible at all.
I'm just thinking about myself, even someone who has had contact with computer for more than 20 years. You're giving me an exam and you're giving me 2 hours to write this exam. I need like 3 days for one exam. And I'm not even joking, except it's just for the objectives.
Yes, the multiple choice.
But if I have to type it out, I need
that's
a lot of time.
Yeah.
So if you're
imagine if you're not even fast in typing.
Even for the multiple choice questions, it's still not that easy, especially when subjects like physics, chemistry, and mathematics are involved. Children are not yet used to how to deal with these problems on the computer. Let's face the reality. And we haven't had good teachers. We haven't had good systems that have taught children how to manipulate these things, using modern technology. Why are we pretending that we don't know what we know?
It's terrible.
Oh, well, hopefully they understand that the timeline may not work and, put something that is a bit more realistic. Like you said, if they want to do this, that means every child in Nigeria should be computer literate, and it's not just Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja. It should be Zamfara, it should be Borno, it should be Delta. And not just when you come
into class.
Yes.
You have computer in your class,
yes.
You have at home.
Yes, so it's important that, because the world is really moving, let's be honest, technology has taken over and we have to get there at some point. We really need to catch up. But what we need to start doing now is putting the tools in place to ensure that we can get there, not just imposing and saying, come 2026, by May, June, we are going to, start the CBT.
I'm sure they know it won't work.
Yeah,
just to show that they're working.
Well, let's see what happens. All right, this is where we have to wrap up this segment right now. Dr. Peter, I want to say thank you so much for coming. It's always a pleasure having you. Thank you for your time.
Have a great day.
You too, sir.
All right, so we're speaking with Dr. Peter Ogudoro. He's an education researcher, and we've just been looking at the fact that the federal government has ordered Waec and Neco to begin full CBT testing by 2026. We'll go on a short break now. When we return, we'll be discussing our second hot topic, so please stay with us.